like that, it's time for our weekly roundup of all the things Lady just ain't gonna do this week. Number 1, racist Republican governors trafficking immigrants. Y'all, these people are picking fights left and right, and this week was no exception, as Florida Governor Ron DeSantis tricked a group of 50 Venezuelan immigrants with promises of free housing and jobs to get on a plane to Massachusetts. They were flown to Martha's Vineyard and quickly learned that they'd been duped. Similarly, Texas Governor Greg Abbott sent a busload of migrants to a street near the Vice President of the United States' home. Now, this is the latest in a war over immigration reform, and really just some dumbass stunt pulling by people who are supposed to be running a whole-ass state. Now, as of Friday, Texas and Arizona sent 295 buses with 13,000 immigrants to D.C., New York, and Chicago, all cities with Democratic mayors. Texas has paid over $12 million to finance this operation. Arizona sent 1,809 migrants on 50 buses to D.C., with a price tag of nearly $4 million. Now, this has sent cities scrambling to figure out how to accommodate with food and shelter, while also figuring out the logistics of their immigration cases, as many of these migrants are coming from Latin America, fleeing political and economic instability in Venezuela, Cuba, and Nicaragua. There's a lot to say about this, but first things first, this is deeply cruel. And inside of this political stunt, we should not and must not lose sight of the cruelty that these governors have doubled down on. In previous episodes, we have discussed fascism as a form of governance that is characterized by an authoritarian dictator who takes extraordinary steps to get rid of their opposition. This, my friends, is an extraordinary step. The fascist doesn't just want to get rid of their political party opposition. They also take steps to rid themselves of anyone who they think does not belong in their manufactured-ass country. Oh, you know, immigrants, Jewish people, Black people, trans people. Anybody shocked and awed that Biden talked about semi-fascism needs to pay attention to this. Are all Republicans fascist? No, that's not even the fucking question. But does it matter when you have pro-fascist forces in your own party? Just saying. Other things Lady won't do this week is Trump doubling down with a new Nazi salute. Speaking of fascism, a recent Trump rally in Ohio showed a new Nazi salute, though this time it's one finger in the air. Observers called it the closest thing to a Nazi rally that they'd ever seen, and others commented that Trump has seemed to further embrace the QAnon conspiracy theories in recent weeks. Now, the cool part of the whole thing is that this is really just looking for votes ahead of the presidential elections in 2024. Trump does not give two shits about them people, and it's a shame that they can't see that. Donald Trump cares only about himself, and only his fucking self. Ain't nothing and nobody gonna change how much that man loves himself and how much he would do anything, and I mean anything, for himself. He would let all them people drown and die if there was a flood right this minute. Now, I keep looking at this shit and saying, is this orange devil really y'all king? Like, really, really? Well, child, one thing I do know is that y'all are divinely protected because, as my mama used to say, God takes care of babies and fools. And that's a good reason to stay focused on how we take care of each other. God got the rest. Other things that Lady just ain't gonna do this week is Hurricane Fiona devastating Puerto Rico. But by all means, let's keep talking about the fucking Queen of England for the last week and a half. Now, I mean, sweet baby Jesus, we have been talking about this woman, the Queen, for hell long. And in the meantime, the Congressional Black Caucus is considering supporting a set of bills that would give even more money to policing. And Puerto Rico was just devastated by a hurricane that has knocked out power to the entire island and cut off water to the entire island. And nobody is hearing about it because we are obsessed with an old-ass white lady who's dead. Now, child, please make it make sense. Lady is going to keep talking about this because ain't none of your news stations doing enough about it, or the disaster that is capitalism, leaving an entire nation without water and power. I mean, come on, man, this is on some bullshit. After almost 5 years to the day that Hurricane Maria devastated the islands, Hurricane Fiona came through talking that shit. and the severely underfunded infrastructure was overwhelmed. Now, you gotta ask yourself why. Given the realities of climate destruction and having dealt with this shit 5 years ago already, why has the infrastructure not been strengthened? Now, what you think the answer is? Well, in the adjusted words of the great Tupac Shakur, they got money for wars but can't protect the poor. Do yourself a favor and follow Defend PR on the socials to learn more about what's going on and, more importantly, what you can do about it. Now, here's what we want more of this week. Number 1, R. Kelly convicted on more charges. Welp, it's looking like R. Kelly ain't never gonna see freedom in his lifetime. This week, the singer was convicted of child sex crimes in Chicago, 3 counts of production of child pornography, and 3 counts of enticement of a minor to engage in criminal sexual activity. Each count of child pornography carries a sentence of up to 20 years in prison. Each count of enticement carries a sentence of up to 10 years in prison. Now, this nigga done got so many fucking years in prison, I have lost count. I am old enough to remember when R. Kelly was caught in a video giving a golden shower to a young woman who was actually, in fact, his godchild. And before you start feeling away about all the prison time he finna get, just remember how the world turned away from a man pissing on his godchild and having sex with her on video. She was 14 years old at the time. He's already got 30 years for this other bullshit. He gonna get about 30 years for this bullshit. And then there's a trial pending in Cook County and also in Minnesota. Now, he really does need a long time out. He needs rehabilitation. He's not gonna get it, but this is the world we work to build. In the meantime, Lady for One is grateful for this forced suspension. In the name of Aaliyah, amen and ashe. Other things Lady loves this week, we think, is that the railroad unions have struck a deal. Now, this week, the conjecture is that a railroad worker strike was narrowly avoided when the White House stepped in to broker a deal. For context, railroad workers authorized a strike after fighting for months over working conditions, as the railroads laid off about 1/3 of their workers during the pandemic. Now, at this stage in the pandemic, the railroads need additional workers to handle all the freight needed to move goods throughout the country. But workers are leaving the railroads due to conditions and pay. The reactions to the proposed deal, they're mixed. Some of the unions involved have endorsed the deal, while others have soundly rejected it. Here's some of the details. Number 1, under this proposed deal, workers would receive 24% raises, $5,000 in bonuses backdated to 2020, so that's about $11,000 per worker. They'd receive 1 additional paid leave day off a year, and unpaid leave for doctor's appointments and medical procedures without being penalized, because they were getting penalized before. Workers would also have to pay a higher percentage of their health insurance costs, but it would be capped at 15% of the total cost of the plan. So here's the deal. It's important for us to understand that when we say things like supply chain issues, that's a euphemism for we don't pay our workers enough to have enough of them to move the shit that needs to be moved. Inflation, in today's context, means unregulated corporations are price gouging the costs of things that people need in order to increase their profits. Just don't get it twisted. Other things that Lady loves this week, y'all, oh my gosh. The Woman King. And it is everything we need in our lives, I promise you. Y'all, I didn't even know that this was the shit I needed in my life. But, I try to stay connected, but this one feels like it came out of nowhere for me. And then on a whim, I decided to go see it, and it's fucking stunning. Viola, honey, you did that for us. And we forgive you, boo, for the help. This definitely redeemed you forever with the culture. Now hurry up and go see it, y'all. I'm not going to spoil it for you, but just trust and believe you will not be sad that you went to see it.